this council was formed, as I understand it, to help the government sort of in its negotiations. So what does this end up looking like for you on a daily basis? Who are you talking to?
Well, we have an open line to the government, including the Prime Minister. He's been very clear that he's making himself available to all of us so that we can give him feedback on what we're hearing on the ground, any advice that we wish to share. And the same thing for public servants, ministers of the government. The idea is for them, I guess, to create antennas out there of individuals who are in the business community, have some experience, and are able to give them some feedback on what's happening. And they also can talk to us so that we can share with the people we work with some of the messaging that they want to get out there.
Are you getting the impression that the idea now is to bat away the tariffs or just strategize on how to deal with them?
I think ideally we're batting away the tariffs, but that's likely not going to happen. So it's about dealing with them. It's being ready for anything and being prepared. I mean, this is all about making sure we have the right answers in place no matter what happens.
When you say it's likely that they're coming anyway, I mean, certainly that echoes. We heard from the CEO of JP Morgan today basically saying in Davos to the rest of the world, hey, the tariffs are coming, countries better get over it and start dealing with it. Last night, John Baird said to us that he thinks this whole idea of trying to convince Donald Trump that he's wrong about tariffs, that tariffs are bad, is actually a bad idea. He likes them. They're going to happen. Stop trying to say they're a bad idea. How does that sit with you?
I think that's true. I don't think we're going to take him off the point. I think it's a question of to what extent he's going to put tariffs on, not whether he's going to put tariffs on. That's my opinion.
He loves tariffs. Yeah. He loves the idea of dealing with immigration. He loves the energy file. Has a long story on that. He also loves the stock market.
Loves money.
And this is a government with a dilemma, a real dilemma. He has a growth agenda of reducing taxes, cutting regulation, cutting the size of government, and then he has exactly the contrary, tariffs. More inflation, higher cost of living, higher interest rates, and maybe higher cost of energy that's going to cripple their economy. And he has to reconcile both. He can't have both. And so within his own administration, we know there are people who are going to fight this idea of just simple tariffs. But is he going to go, does he love tariffs? Of course he does. We know that. We've known it for a long while.
You said you have antenna everywhere, so you're talking to all sorts of people. Do they think that this notion of retaliatory tariffs that get floated, the idea of you treat a bully like a bully, that's going to work?
I think the notion is that we have to stand for our country. We have to do whatever it is we need to do to defend Canadians' ability to live in an affordable manner. And if that's one for one, that's one for one. If that's something different, then that's something different. But I don't think we can just kind of turn our heads the other way and say nothing's going to happen. Something is going to happen, and we're going to have to defend it. And I think that's just the way it's going to be.
We have to respond, and we have to respond with, it has to be robust, determined, and with strength. Yes, Canadians may suffer through all of this. And also, remember in the process of Mr. Trump, of the idea, the grand statement, hits his adversary over the head, destabilize them, get them to admit things. But then you get into the world of exceptions, Adrienne. In the last administration, when he did a number of things with China, and the Biden administration did the whole thing, the American political system is such as that it's like a Swiss cheese. You get the headline policy, and then everyone runs in with their lobbyists to get the exemptions. So it's a very different world. Think of him as a hockey player right now alone on the ice. He had his best day on Inauguration Day, but as of today, he has to deal with Congress. He has to deal with the courts. He has to deal with the business community. He has to deal with public opinion. It's going to be a different, and Canada is going to do its part so that we get the best decisions possible.
Which I think is a really good point, because we're not even a week into his administration. Right. So people need to not overreact right now. They need to let this unfold as it's unfolding.
So what do Canadians do? Do you have any counsel for them? Is this by Canadian? I mean, I think there's a helplessness that they want some help with.
Yeah, I know that the Prime Minister spoke today about just that, and I think buying Canadian, I'll tell you from my perspective, this is as an entrepreneur and speaking to entrepreneurs every day, this is exactly what we're saying, which is buy Canadian. Think about what you're purchasing. Think about the decisions you're making. And, thinking about what we can do in terms of whether it's interprovincial tariffs, whether it's cutting red tape so projects can go ahead. The things that we are looking at as a council and, of course, the Prime Minister and his office are trying to make a difference for Canadians real time. So what can Canadians do? They cannot panic. I know that's easy to say, Adrienne, because you're exactly right. We're all a little bit afraid. I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit afraid of what's about to happen. But in that fear is an opportunity for Canadians to come together and to galvanize about our country and to cheer on, what we stand for. So as opposed to being afraid and going into the corners, we need to come out.
Do you think this is also a wake-up call about maybe Canada is a little too closely aligned economically with the United States?
It's bigger. I think it's bigger than that. It is a general wake-up call about the country. I think in 20 years from now, we may thank Donald Trump for having done this and allowed us to have a very hard look at ourselves, Adrienne, as a country, on how we have managed our economy, how we work among the provinces, and our position in the world. Because it used to be that we could take the Americans for granted. We can't anymore. And for Mr. Trump, the world is an arena. For Mr. Trump, there is no global community. The world's an arena. In the arena, there's the vanquished and the one who wins. And they bring to this, in their view, power, and they embrace that. That's what we're seeing right now. So I think one day we should, and don't expect us or the government or people to talk today about what the retaliation will be. If there's one consensus, I think, Arlene, we saw yesterday, let's keep our powder dry, stay cool, be very well prepared for the scenarios. And rather than talk about what we'll do it. And when we do it, and we can hurt them, we don't want to, but think of aluminum, potash, uranium, energy, of course. All these things are areas in which any action from Canada could be potentially painful for Americans, which we don't want to do, but if we have to defend ourselves, we will.
One last thought to you, and we really don't have much time at all. Unhelpful, helpful when people freelance a little bit like this, when you hear comments from prominent people like Kevin O'Leary talking about maybe we should merge the currencies, maybe there should be a common market.
Unhelpful. It's unhelpful because it goes against the narrative of what we're trying to do is unifying the country and speaking with one voice. And that's not the tone that anyone has right now. We want to stand together. We do not want to have divisiveness out there. And somebody advocating for what I think is their own self-interest is not going to help in any way.
Have you told him that?
I haven't had a chance to tell him that, but hopefully he's heard some of these interviews that I've been doing where I've been saying exactly that, Adrienne. It's not helpful.
Okay. Arlene Dickinson, Jean Charest, thank you very much.
Thank you.